Hi Reddit. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to spill my life here, but I've got no one to tell this to, and after what happened last weekend, it's been clawing at my chest like an itch I can't reach. So here goes. I'm Callie. I'm 28 years old, and this is the story of how my own mother forced me to give up college so my little brother could chase a dream he never even wanted, and how that decision shattered something in me I never got back. I grew up in a small town in Indiana. Nothing special. A grid of cracked sidewalks, rusting chain-link fences, and people who knew your business before you did. My mom, Donna, raised us alone after my dad left when I was 9. It was always just us three. Me, mom, and my younger brother, Travis. I was 3 years older, and from the start the message was clear. I was the responsible one. Travis was the baby. Even when he was 12 and I was 15, I was the one getting him ready for school, packing his lunches, reminding him to take his meds for his ADHD, while our mom worked double shifts at the nursing home. I didn't mind. Back then, I believed in the idea of family sacrifice. I thought that's just what you did for people you loved. I was a straight-A student. My escape plan was the University of Michigan. I dreamed of it since 8th grade, their poli-sci program, the campus, the independence. I stayed up late writing essays while Travis snuck out his bedroom window to hang out with older boys in trucks who vaped and got suspended weekly. Still, mom always said, Travis has heart, he just needs guidance. I nodded. I believed her. When I was 17, I got in. University of Michigan. Partial scholarship. Enough to cover 60%. I was over the moon. I remember the moment I opened the email. I was sitting at the kitchen table, in our tiny apartment with the warped linoleum floors, and I screamed. I'd made it. Everything I'd worked for, late nights, tutoring gigs, hours studying at the town library while Travis played Xbox in the living room, it had all led here. I showed mom the email with shaking hands, heart pounding. She hugged me, and for a minute I thought she was proud. Then her face changed. The light in her eyes dimmed. She went quiet, and her mouth turned into a hard line. That night she sat me down. Just me. Travis was in his room, blasting music. Mom looked tired like always, but her tone was different, cold, businesslike. I've been thinking, Callie, she said. I don't think you should go. I blinked. What? Your brother's entering high school. He's struggling. Bad. If someone's not here to keep him in line, I don't know what's going to happen. I'll call, I said. I'll visit. I can help. No, she interrupted. It's not enough. He needs you here. You're the only one he listens to. If he flunks out or ends up in trouble, he's going to ruin his life. We can't afford that. I laughed. I actually laughed. I thought it was a joke. I said, I've been working for this for years, Mom. This is my life. She just looked at me, arms crossed. You can go another year. Just defer. Help out. Get a job. Travis needs us right now. That phrase. As if I were another parent. As if I hadn't been a teenager carrying the weight of the house already. I fought it. For weeks. But she wouldn't budge. She started freezing me out. Giving me the silent treatment. Then she said if I left, she'd stop supporting me entirely. No rent, no health insurance, nothing. I was 17. No savings. I'd only just started working at the local diner. I caved. I deferred my admission. Just 1 year, I told myself. 1 year became 2. I worked 40 hours a week at Tilly's Diner, bussing tables and mopping floors. The scholarship started shrinking after I failed to enroll again. I missed the deadline. I missed everything. Meanwhile, Travis got suspended twice for vaping, and once for stealing a teacher's car keys as a prank. Each time Mom said, he's just lost. He needs time. I started to realize that in our house, Travis didn't earn things. He was just given them no matter how many times he dropped them. At 19, I tried again. I applied to a smaller school, Purdue Fort Wayne. Local, cheaper. I got in. I saved money. This time I didn't tell Mom until I had everything ready. She cried. She said I was abandoning the family. That Travis was finally turning a corner, and I was going to ruin his progress. He'll fall apart without you, Callie. He was already falling apart. But still I let her pull me back. By 20 I was done. I was watching my life pass me by while my brother slept until noon and failed out of high school. I packed a bag one night. Took $800 cash I'd saved from my tips. I didn't tell anyone. Just boarded a Greyhound to Denver. What followed were the hardest 2 years of my life. I couch surfed. Lived in a shared room with 3 other girls. Waitressed. Got fired. Tempied. Then one day I served coffee to a man named Elijah Green. He was in town for a tech conference. Asked what I did. I said I used to dream of college but life got in the way. Something about me intrigued him. He left a $100 tip in his business card. Said, "You've got the look of someone who knows how to survive. Call me if you want a job." I did. He wasn't a creep, surprisingly. He was a startup founder, burned out but brilliant. Needed someone organized, quick, unafraid of chaos. I became his assistant, then his operations lead, then his girlfriend. Now years later I'm his wife. Which brings us to last weekend. I hadn't spoken to Mom or Travis in almost 7 years. She never called, never texted. Maybe her pride, maybe mine. But I'd heard through old friends that Travis never left home. No job, no girlfriend. Still plays Call of Duty till 3 a.m. And I got curious. What would happen if I went back? I didn't tell them. I just showed up. In a white Porsche Cayenne. In a tailored navy dress. With a diamond ring on my finger. And a smile that said, "I'm not the same girl you left behind." I parked the car a few feet from the house, engine still humming. For a long moment, I just sat there with my hands on the steering wheel, staring at the warped front porch and half-dead azalea bush my mom used to obsess over. The curtains were closed, and the house looked even smaller than I remembered. As if time had shrunk it. This wasn't a home anymore. It was a tomb. I grabbed my handbag and stepped out, heels crunching on the gravel. The air smelled like overcooked oil and summer rot. I was wearing a navy blue sheath dress and nude heels, business formal. I hadn't dressed up on purpose. I had just come from a meeting. But part of me knew subconsciously that it would make an impact. I walked up the porch steps. The wood creaked under my weight, and the welcome mat was still the same. Bless this mess. I gave a few sharp knocks. Nothing. I knocked again. Finally the door opened. There she was. My mother. Donna Kramer. She looked older. Her hair had more gray than brown now, pulled into a limp ponytail. She was wearing a stretched-out t-shirt that read, "Coffee first, people later," and plaid pajama pants. Her expression went through 3 stages in 2 seconds. Confusion, disbelief, and something like fear. "Callie," she said, voice hoarse. I smiled like I was seeing an old friend. "Hey, Mom." She just stood there. No hug. No warmth. Her eyes flicked over me, the dress, the purse, the car parked at the curb. She didn't ask why I was there. Instead, she stepped aside. "Come in, I guess." I stepped inside and it hit me like a wave. The smell of grease, old carpet, and stale laundry. The living room was exactly the same. Same sagging beige couch, same water-stained ceiling tile, same TV on the wall. And in front of it, my brother Travis, now 25, slouched with a headset around his neck and a game controller in his hand. A large energy drink sat on the coffee table, surrounded by empty snack bags. He turned and squinted. "What the hell?" "Nice to see you too," I said. He blinked at me like I was a hallucination. "You look weird." "Thanks, I guess." I glanced at the screen, some shooter game, lots of neon lights and explosions. "Still gaming. Still judging," he snapped and turned back to the screen. I turned to my mom, who had folded her arms across her chest. "I was in the area. Thought I'd drop by. It's been a while." 7 years, she said. "That's more than a while." I gave a small shrug. "Life got busy." "Must be nice," she muttered, glancing again at the car. "Didn't know you could afford a Porsche working at a diner." "I don't work at a diner anymore." She didn't ask what I did now. She just sat down on the recliner and turned down the volume on the TV. "So what, you're here to gloat?" "I'm here to say hi." That was only half true. The other half, I wanted to see it. With my own eyes. The thing I'd given up my future for. The life I sacrificed myself to protect. And what I saw was a man-child in basketball shorts, a mother who looked 50 going on 70, and a house trapped in 2010. "You look well," she said finally. "Too thin, maybe. But successful, I guess." "I am." She nodded slowly. "Married?" "Yes." "To who?" "Elijah Green." Her eyebrows shot up. "As in Green Tech Elijah Green?" I smiled politely. "That one." "No kidding," she said, laughing in disbelief. "Well, I'll be damned. Didn't peg you for the type to marry a tech guy." "I'm not just married to him," I said. "I run his operations division. We started a new company last year. I'm CEO now." She looked stunned for a moment. Then something dark flickered across her face. Maybe envy. Maybe regret. Or maybe just fear that the balance had shifted. Well, she said, smoothing her shirt. Good for you. There was an awkward pause. Travis yawned loudly and scratched his stomach. You done catching up? You're awfully rude for someone who got a full-time babysitter for free. What's that supposed to mean? He snapped. It means I gave up my life for yours, I said, my voice sharper now. And this is what you did with it? Travis sat up, his eyes narrowing. I didn't ask you to. That was Mom's call. And you were perfectly fine going along with it, I shot back. Donna raised a hand. Okay, enough. I don't want fighting in this house. This isn't a house, I said quietly. It's a graveyard. You buried me here. She stood up, eyes blazing. Don't you dare talk to me like that. I worked myself to the bone for this family. I did what I thought was right. You picked your favorite, I said. And it wasn't the kid who busted her ass to make something of herself. That's not true. You never called, I said. Not once. You never asked if I was okay. You never said sorry. I didn't know if you even wanted to hear from me. You didn't try. The room went still. Travis tossed his controller down. God, you're so dramatic. You show up here with your rich girl attitude, acting like you're better than us. I am better than you, I said calmly. I worked for everything I have. What have you done in 7 years? He opened his mouth but nothing came out. Just a twitch of his jaw. I turned to Mom. You said he had potential. That if I just gave up my dream, he'd go further. So I ask you right here, right now, was it worth it? She didn't answer. She couldn't. I stood in the doorway. The same threshold I used to walk through after long shifts. The same floor I cried on when she told me I wasn't allowed to leave. Now I was the one leaving. Again. But this time I wasn't broken. Before stepping out, I turned back one last time. I hope you enjoy the life you chose, I said. Because I did too. And mine doesn't include either of you. Then I closed the door behind me. The sound of the door closing behind me was sharper than I expected. Final. Like the punctuation at the end of a sentence you've spent years trying not to finish. I walked to my car slowly, my heels tapping against the cracked concrete. A rhythm that didn't belong in that neighborhood anymore. I could feel their eyes on me, maybe through the blinds, maybe not, but I didn't look back. As soon as I slid into the driver's seat and shut the door, I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. I didn't cry. I didn't feel satisfied either. I just felt done. I pulled out of the driveway, tires crunching over gravel, and turned onto the road that had once led me to high school and dead-end jobs and late-night grocery runs. I hadn't planned to stay in town, not even for a night. My suitcase was still in the back seat, untouched. I had a hotel booked 2 towns over, a 5-star place with real linens and complimentary champagne. But I didn't feel like celebrating. Not yet. An hour later I was in my suite, curled up on the couch in a robe, a glass of wine in my hand. Elijah had texted me twice, just checking in. I hadn't told him the real reason for the trip, only that I was visiting family. He didn't press. That's one of the things I love about him. He doesn't demand pieces of me I'm not ready to give. But as I stared out the window at the hotel pool below, lit up in soft blue light, I started wondering, should I tell him? Not about the visit. About everything. Because until now, he'd only gotten a sanitized version of my childhood. It was rough, I'd say. Small town stuff. Complicated. I never told him how my mother guilted me out of my future like it was some favor she was asking. I never told him I went to bed for months clutching a university brochure like it was a photograph of someone I used to be. I sipped the wine. The taste was sharp, expensive, but bitter. Just like tonight. My phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Elijah. Unknown number. I stared at it for a long moment before answering. Hello. Silence. Then a breath. And then, you didn't have to do that. Travis. I didn't say anything. I know you hate me. He continued, voice low, like he didn't want Mom to hear. And maybe I deserve that. But you didn't have to come back just to rub it in our faces. I laughed, not because it was funny but because of how predictable it all was. I didn't come to rub anything in. I came to see if there was anything left. Well, there's not, he snapped. So congratulations. You really think this is about you? You stood in our living room and called me a failure. What else was it supposed to be? You are a failure, Travis, I said, voice steady. Not because you're unemployed. Not because you live with Mom. But because you've never tried. You've been handed everything. You wasted all the time I gave you. I never asked you to stay, he shot back. No, you just benefited from it. He went quiet. I sighed. Do you even remember that summer? When I got the scholarship? When Mom told me I wasn't allowed to go? I remember she cried for days. Said it would tear the family apart. No, I said coldly. She cried because she knew she was wrong. But she did it anyway. Another long silence. Then, she's not well, you know. Hasn't been for a while. I froze. What do you mean? Her back's shot from the nursing home job. She's got high blood pressure, maybe some kind of thyroid issue. She won't go to the doctor. Says she can't afford it. And you're just what? Watching her fall apart? I try, he said weakly. I do. I clean. I cook. Sometimes. But I'm not you. I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. No, Travis, I said. You're not me. Because I wouldn't sit there while the woman who ruined her daughter's future rots in her own regret. That shut him up. I ended the call without saying goodbye. The next morning I woke up to 5 missed calls and a string of texts. All from my mom. Donna, you didn't have to humiliate us like that. Donna. I was only doing what I thought was right. Donna. Don't pretend like you're better. You left. You abandoned your family. Donna. But I'm still your mother. Donna, I need help. That last one gave me pause. I need help. Not we. Not Travis needs support. Just her. It was the first honest thing I think she'd said in years. I stared at it for 10 minutes, then tossed my phone onto the bed. Later that afternoon I called Elijah. We talked like normal. He told me about a meeting with investors. I told him I was heading back the next day. He didn't ask questions, but before we hung up he said something that stuck with me. You don't owe anyone the broken pieces of yourself, Callie. And he was right. But still, I drove past the old house one more time that evening. Just to see. I didn't stop. I didn't get out. I just watched from the car. The blinds were closed. The porch light was off. The azalea bush was dead. And I realized something. This wasn't closure. There would never be closure. But there was distance. And that would have to be enough. I drove out of that town the next morning at dawn, the sky still soft with early light, the air heavy with the smell of dew and diesel. As the miles peeled away behind me, I felt lighter, not freer exactly but unshackled in a different way. The kind of weight you only notice after it's gone. Still, her last message clung to me like a burr on fabric. I need help. It kept repeating in my mind like a loop I couldn't mute. Not because I felt responsible, I didn't, but because it was the first time Donna Kramer had said anything resembling vulnerability. My whole childhood was dictated by her authority, her certainty, her relentless control dressed up as maternal sacrifice. She didn't ask for help. She demanded obedience. But now she was asking. And not for Travis. For herself. Back in Denver, I returned to my routines. Morning meetings. Strategy calls. Company metrics. My assistant, Layla, handed me a fresh latte the moment I stepped into the office, and I thanked her like always. The team welcomed me back as if I'd just taken a weekend getaway. No one knew I'd just walked into the wreckage of my former life and stared straight into the rot. That evening, I sat at the kitchen island in our condo, barefoot in silk pajamas, watching Elijah stir risotto while jazz played softly from the speakers. The floor-to-ceiling windows behind him framed the city in twilight, a sprawl of lights and movement. Our world. Clean, quiet, structured. Want to tell me what really happened out there? He asked gently, still stirring. I hesitated. I visited my mom. He paused for just a beat, then resumed stirring. How was that? Like visiting a time capsule, full of resentment and broken promises. He set the spoon down and turned to face me, arms folded. What did she say? That I abandoned the family. That I was cruel for showing up. And then, I took a breath. Then she said she needed help. Elijah nodded slowly, waiting. I don't know what she wants. Maybe money. Maybe an apology from me for leaving. Do you feel guilty? I opened my mouth. Closed it again. I don't know. And that was the truth. I didn't feel bad for leaving. I didn't regret building the life I had. But there was something gnawing under my skin. Not guilt exactly. Something else. Maybe I feel like I should feel guilty, I admitted. But I don't. Not really. She chose my brother over me. Over and over again. Elijah stepped closer and took my hand. You don't owe her anything just because she finally ran out of people to blame. His words landed hard. Because part of me, the little girl who used to rub her mom's feet after double shifts, who stayed up helping Travis finish his English homework, that girl still wanted to be told you were good. You did enough. But I'd never hear it. Not from her. A week later I received a letter. Not an email. Not a text. A handwritten letter. From Donna. It was 4 pages long. Written in uneven cursive, the paper smudged in places. I read it once sitting at my desk. Then I read it again. Callie, I didn't know how else to reach you without it turning into a fight. So I'm writing this down because maybe paper will let me say the things I should have said years ago. I was scared. That's the truth. I saw you about to leave and I panicked. I told myself you were abandoning us, but really, I was afraid of being left behind. Afraid of Travis failing without someone keeping him in check. Afraid of being alone with all my mistakes. You were always the strong one. Even as a kid, you always had a plan. Travis never did. Maybe I overcompensated because I saw too much of your father in him. The laziness. The selfishness. And I thought if I just poured enough time into him, I could stop history from repeating. But in the process, I repeated a different mistake. I failed you. I made you sacrifice things I had no right to ask for. And when you left, I told myself you were heartless because it hurt too much to admit you were right. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect a response. But I needed you to know I see it now. What I did. And I'm sorry. Take care of yourself. I'm proud of you even if I didn't show it. Always was. Mom. I sat with that letter in my lap for a long time. No tears. No fury. Just the surreal experience of reading the apology I'd fantasized about since I was 18. And I realized something. Closure doesn't always come like a thunderclap. Sometimes it arrives as a whisper. A confession written in shaking hands. And maybe that was enough. A few days later I met with Elijah at our favorite rooftop bar. One of those quiet, upscale places with exposed brick and ivy-covered walls. I showed him the letter. He read it quietly, his thumb brushing the bottom corner as he finished. She's trying, he said. Maybe, I said. Or maybe she's just trying to get back into my life. Do you want her in it? I took a sip of wine. I don't know. But I don't want to hate her anymore. Elijah nodded and leaned back in his chair. Then don't. Hate is heavy. You've carried it long enough. I stared out over the city, my mind drifting. Maybe I didn't need to forgive her in the way people expected. Hugs and holidays and phone calls every Sunday. Maybe forgiveness could look like letting go without letting back in. That weekend I wrote a letter of my own. Mom, I got your letter. I wasn't expecting it, but I'm glad you sent it. I don't have it in me to undo the years between us. Too much has happened. Too much was lost. But I believe you meant what you wrote. And I needed to hear it. I've built a life for myself. A good one. And I'm happy. That happiness didn't come from revenge. Came from choosing myself finally. I don't hate you. I just need space. That may not make sense to you, but it's what I need. I hope you find peace whatever that looks like for you. Callie. I sent it. No return address. A month passed. Then 2. No word. No calls. The silence was unfamiliar, but not unwelcome. For once it wasn't full of tension. It just was. I kept moving forward. Elijah and I bought a new home. Bigger, brighter, with space to grow into. He asked if I wanted a guest room for family visits. I said yes, even though I didn't know who might ever use it. One day maybe. Or maybe never. And I was okay with both. 3 months passed. Then 6. I didn't hear from Donna again. Not a second letter. Not a call. The silence remained long, flat, and undisturbed. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't anxiously waiting for it to break. Still, sometimes I'd find myself pausing mid-step in my day, halfway through brushing my teeth, or reaching for my phone before bed, with this odd, hollow ache in my chest, like something had been removed, something I used to complain about, even hate, but had still been mine. Trauma has a weird way of shaping you. You can build an entire life beyond it, homes, careers, love, and still the edges of who you are will carry its fingerprint. I had my dream job. I had a partner who respected me. I had peace. But I still caught myself jumping when my phone rang, expecting an accusation instead of a hello. One evening in early spring, Elijah and I were hosting a small dinner at our new place. Nothing extravagant, just a few close friends, wine, laughter echoing under our high ceilings. Our home felt lived in now. Books on the shelves. A piano in the corner. Elijah insisted he'd eventually learn. The walls were painted soft cream, the kind of neutral that whispered you made it. In the middle of dessert, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I froze. Elijah saw my reaction and gently placed his hand over mine. You okay? I nodded and stood, stepping onto the balcony while our guests chatted inside. I answered. Callie. The voice was male. Tired. Familiar. Travis, I said flatly. Yeah, hey. I didn't respond. He sighed. I wasn't going to call. I didn't want to bother you. But, something happened. My stomach nodded. I already knew. It's Mom, he continued. She collapsed at home last week. She's in the hospital. Heart failure, they think. She's stable now, but I thought you should know. I leaned against the railing, looking out at the distant city lights. And you want what, Travis? Sympathy? Money? No, he said quickly. I swear. I'm not calling for that. Then why now? He hesitated. Because I think she really is dying, and she keeps asking about you. I closed my eyes. A sharp wind tugged at my hair. Callie, I know you hate us, he said. But she's scared. She keeps thinking you'll walk through the door. And every time someone enters the room, she looks up like maybe this'll be the time. I didn't realize I was crying until a tear landed on my wrist. Why are you telling me this? I whispered. Because I can't do this alone, he admitted, voice cracking. And because maybe I don't want her last words to be silence. I didn't give him an answer that night. I hung up and went back inside. Smiled. Laughed. Cleared plates and refilled wine glasses like nothing had shifted inside me. But that night, when the house was quiet and Elijah was asleep beside me, I stared at the ceiling and thought about all the things I'd never said. And I wondered what it would feel like to say them when the clock was almost out of time. The next morning, I flew back to Indiana. Not out of obligation. Not guilt. But because I needed to see her one last time. As the woman she was, not the mother I wanted her to be. The hospital was plain and pale, the kind of place that smelled like bleach and defeat. I found Travis slumped in a plastic chair in the ICU waiting room. He looked rough, thinner, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes. When he saw me, he stood quickly. You came. I didn't come for you. I know. We didn't hug. Didn't smile. Just nodded like old war veterans acknowledging the same battle scars. She's awake, he said. Sometimes. He led me through the corridor, past beeping machines and quiet nurses. And then he stopped outside room 218. She doesn't know you're here, he said softly. I stepped inside. Donna lay in a narrow bed, smaller than I remembered, her hair thinner, her face hollow. Tubes ran from her arms. Machines beeped beside her like impatient metronomes. For a moment I didn't recognize her. This wasn't the woman who'd slammed doors, barked orders, held our lives in a clenched fist. This was someone unraveling. Her eyes fluttered open. She turned her head slowly. And then quietly like a child she whispered, Callie. I nodded. She started crying. Softly, weakly. I pulled a chair close, sat down and took her hand. I didn't think you'd come, she said, breath shallow. I almost didn't. I'm glad you did. We sat in silence for a long while, her hand in mine, the years between us rising like ghosts in the corner of the room. All the things we didn't say. All the things we did and couldn't take back. I'm sorry, she said finally. For all of it. I know, I whispered. I was so scared you'd leave. And then when you did, I realized I was the one who pushed you away. You did, I said. No sugarcoating. No comfort. Just truth. But you survived, she said, eyes locked on mine. You did better than survive. I thrived, Mom. And I did it without you. She gave a trembling nod. Good. I'm glad. I really am. We didn't talk much more. She tired quickly. But before she drifted off again, she squeezed my hand and whispered, Thank you. I left the hospital without looking back. Travis didn't follow. He knew I wasn't staying. Back in Denver, I didn't tell Elijah right away. I needed time to process what I'd seen, what I'd felt. I hadn't forgiven her in that room. I still hadn't. But I'd faced her. And maybe that was something even deeper. The ability to walk back into the place you were broken. And walk out whole. 2 weeks later I got the call. Donna Kramer passed quietly in her sleep at 2:12 a.m. No dramatic final words. No deathbed confessions. Just gone. Travis sent me a short message. She's gone. Funeral's Friday. You don't have to come. And I didn't. I didn't go to the funeral. Not out of anger. Not to prove a point. Just because I knew I'd already buried her. Not in the ground, but in 1,000 memories I'd spent years learning how to survive. I mourned the mother I wanted, not the one I had. And that morning that grief had already passed through me like a storm. Still, when the dust settled, there were things left behind. Legal things. Property things. A week after Donna's death, I received a manila envelope from an estate lawyer in Indianapolis. Inside was a copy of her will, hastily amended 2 years ago. There wasn't much. A few thousand in savings. The house. Some antique jewelry that had belonged to our grandmother. And a single line scrawled near the bottom. To Callie Kramer, if she wants it, the house is hers. If not, burn it down. I stared at that sentence for a long time. Travis had already signed his rights away. He didn't want it. Said it held nothing but bad air and roaches. He'd moved into his friend's apartment, apparently planning to figure things out. He offered to handle clearing out the house, but I declined. I needed to see it again. One last time. Not for nostalgia. For closure. So I flew back to Indiana. Alone. When I arrived at the house, a rusty lockbox hung from the doorknob. The air smelled like dust and stale memories. The living room was exactly as I'd left it months before. Same sagging couch, same water-stained ceiling, now lit only by sunlight slanting through bent blinds. I moved slowly, taking it all in. The old family photo on the wall crooked. The worn carpet with the burn mark from where Travis dropped a Roman candle. The kitchen still had a sticky note on the fridge that read, "Buy eggs." I walked the house like it was a museum. One room at a time. No soundtrack. No narration. Just the creak of floorboards and the occasional distant bark from the neighbor's dog. My childhood bedroom was still painted lilac. The ceiling fan had 3 working blades. The closet held an old shoebox full of notebooks and report cards. Straight A's. Praise from teachers. Awards that never made it to the fridge. On the top shelf, I found the letter I wrote to myself when I was 17, the one I'd planned to open the day I moved into my college dorm. I sat on the edge of the bed and opened it. Dear future me, if you're reading this, it means you made it. You're finally free. Don't forget who you are. Don't let anyone take this from you again. Go change the world. Love, Callie. I folded the letter and placed it back in the box. And for the first time in years, I let myself cry. Not out of regret, but out of relief. Because I had, in my own way, made it. Just not the way I'd imagined. I didn't stay long. Just a few hours. I took what I wanted, the letter, a few photos, a gold bracelet my grandmother once gave to Donna that I remembered admiring as a kid. I left the rest. The furniture. The memories. The weight. The next morning I met with a realtor. Told her to list the house as is. No renovations. No fresh paint. Let it go to someone else. Let them build something new on top of the ruins. Let it become someone else's story. Back in Denver, life resumed like a quiet tide. Elijah was waiting at the airport with coffee and a soft smile. No questions. Just a warm arm around my shoulders and silence that felt like understanding. At home, I placed the letter from 17-year-old me in the drawer of my nightstand. Alongside it, I placed my mother's second letter. The one she'd written before she died. One full of damage. The other full of hope. I kept both. Not to dwell on the past, but to remember how far I'd come. Months passed. Spring turned to summer. Then fall. I never spoke to Travis again. I heard, through distant whispers from old Facebook friends, that he was working part-time at a vape shop in town. Still drifting. Still gaming. But no longer at home. In some odd way, maybe Donna's death finally forced him to grow up. Or maybe not. It wasn't my job to wonder anymore. On my 29th birthday, Elijah surprised me with a trip to the coast. A quiet weekend in a glass cottage tucked into the cliffs of Big Sur. That night, wrapped in a blanket on the balcony, listening to the ocean below, he asked me a question. You ever think about having kids? The question landed gently. Like a feather, not a hammer. I looked out over the Black Sea, waves catching the moonlight. Sometimes, I said. But I'd want to raise them different. How so? No sacrifices that feel like sentences, I said. No guilt disguised as love. Just freedom. Choice. Elijah nodded, his hand finding mine. That's what I want too. I smiled. Then maybe, yeah. Someday. A year later, I donated part of my stock earnings to fund scholarships for girls from small towns. The kind who dreamed big but were told they had to wait. I named the fund the Azalea Grant, in honor of that stubborn half-dead bush that tried so hard to bloom beside our porch. And every time I saw a name come through, every girl accepted into college, every essay that spoke of escape and ambition, I felt something mend inside me. Because maybe that's what healing really is. Not forgetting, not forgiving everything, but redirecting the pain, turning it into fuel, into purpose, into legacy. This isn't a fairy tale. There's no perfect ending. Just life, messy, beautiful, jagged, real. But I can tell you this much. I made it out. I became someone I'm proud of. And the girl who once gave up everything for a family that didn't choose her, she came back. But she came back different. She came back free.